Hey friends, thanks for joining with us on our YouTube channel again today. Today we're talking about the topic of conflict resolution. Conflict resolution. We've got another video where we define conflict resolution, or we define conflict rather. We talk about some of the different ways that people typically try to resolve conflict or not. And we also talk about some of the benefits of conflict. A lot of times we want to avoid conflict at all costs, but conflict can promote some benefits in our lives. So we want to address that. But today we're talking about 8 different ways to resolve conflict. These are principles that you can use to help resolve conflict. And we gathered most of these from the book, Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. Incredible book. I highly encourage you to go check out that information. You listen to him on podcasts. He's got some great information on this. We're going to just scratch the surface on these principles. He can share the more of the why and how it works, but we're going to share these 8 principles with you. Not all 8 are found in that book. 1 or 2 are extra that we've got that we wanted to put there. But let's just say you've got a scenario. Let's say you're a real estate agent and you have another agent. Maybe you're the listing agent, maybe the other one is the buyer's agent, and there's conflict, there's issues there. There's a scenario where they're very upset with you. How do you resolve that conflict? Well, one of the things that we talk about in conflict resolution is what Chris Voss calls labeling. You label what you think their emotion is. Now, it might seem like if I label their emotion, they're going to get more mad, they're going to get more upset, but it actually has an opposite effect. If they're negative, when you call out that emotion for what it is, what it's doing is it's affirming them that, yep, I got you, I hear you, it sounds like you're mad, it seems like you're upset, okay? And so these are phrases that you can use. Looks like, sounds like, seems like, okay? When you have that person, if they're right in front of you, hey, looks like you're upset, or sounds like you're frustrated. What this does, it affirms, yep, I am. Or if we're off target, people always like to correct other people. It gives them a chance to correct you, which makes them feel pretty good. So you use labels in trying to find out. We're trying to get them to understand that we're listening, that we appreciate what they're saying. We're not saying we agree with them right here on this one. But the other thing is we're trying to get them to stop and contemplate their situation. So, hey, it looks like you're upset. They'll volley back. The next thing we want to make sure that we do is that we pause, that we utilize effective pauses. People typically don't like silence. And if I'm in a conversation and I don't say anything and the other person doesn't say anything, one of the two of us is going to say something. And if we pause, it prompts that person to speak. Hopefully they're going to continue to respond on what they were frustrated about, and we can find out more information. A third principle is to mirror. To mirror means to call back 1 to 3 words. Just repeat 1 to 3 words of an important phrase that maybe they just used. As we point those words back, as they say those words back, they've heard those words because they've said those words. And what it will do oftentimes is, again, it tells them we're listening, we're actively listening, we're hearing what you have to say without saying, I hear you. We're actually demonstrating that we hear you, which, frankly, conflict resolution, a large part of the battle is how effectively do I listen? How effectively do I find out what's really going on? And so when we mirror those words back, we're in this investigation of trying to find out really what is under the surface of this conflict. It allows them to continue to tell us what's going on. A fourth one is to employ effective encouragers. So as we're talking, we don't want to interrupt that person. We certainly don't want to go, oh, I know how you feel. Here's how this worked out with me. No, we don't want to go on a journey and take them down this road to tell them how, if you think you've got it bad, I had it worse. We don't want to focus their attention back on us. We want to focus that attention back on them. But we also don't want to just sit there in silence. So how do we demonstrate that we're actively listening here? Well, we use these effective encouragers. They're words that are very brief. Yes, okay, go on. You don't say, really? Are you serious? Different words. There's many of them that you can use. And what you're doing is you're prompting them to continue unpacking what's going on. Okay, the fifth one is paraphrase. Paraphrase is just simply to take what you believe they've said and you put that into your own words and you speak that back to them. If you get it wrong, again, it's going to save you some time and effort because they're going to correct you and you can get back on track. If you get it right, what you're doing is you're showing them this is a safe place to talk. This is a place that you're listening to what they have to say. You're setting this up to where if you have to disagree, at least you've heard them out, right? Stephen Covey was famous for saying, seek first to understand, then to be understood. And that's what we're doing here. The next one is not something we got out of the Chris Voss book, but it's just something that I threw in there. It's focus on what you can control, not on what you can't. Let's go back to this illustration. If you're a real estate agent, let's say you're the listing agent and you get a call from the buyer's agent and they are very frustrated. The reason they're frustrated is because they had sent an inspector over to inspect the house that you're doing this deal on, and the utilities weren't on. Well, the seller was supposed to get those turned on. You as the agent were supposed to make sure that happened. It didn't. So it's going to delay the process. It's also going to possibly cost more money to the buyer because they've got to pay the inspector twice. And so what can you control? If this were on your seller, you certainly don't want to throw them under the bus. You can't control what happened past. You can't control. That's already water under the bridge. What can you control? You can control right now and moving forward. But there's three words that, if employed correctly and genuinely, make a world of difference in the midst of a conflict. And their three words are, I am sorry. Okay? What you're doing is you're not blaming anyone else. You're not deferring this. You're not deflecting this. You're standing on 2 feet and you're saying, look, I'm sorry. It was my bad. It was my responsibility. What can you do? You can take ownership, but what else can you do? I will make sure when the inspector comes back, I will go the day before. I will meet that person there. I will make sure that those utilities are on. Focus on what you can control, not on what you can't control. Don't spend that energy and that time on things that you can't control because that doesn't help the situation. Okay, the next one we'll talk about is to use calibrated questions. And these questions are there to really help that person visualize, where they're going. They're there to sometimes, problem solve and use both of us, to problem solve. Here's one. Hey, if you're in this conflict, hey, buyer's agent, what will it look like when we get past this conflict? What is it that it's going to take for me to satisfy you in this situation? What you're doing is you're giving them the vision. This is going to work out. Okay, you're getting the buy-in from them and helping them realize, hey, I've been listening to you. I'm not watering down this situation. I do see that it is a problem, and I understand that. What's it going to look like, for us to get past this? And they may say, hey, you know what? I need you to do something. Sometimes they're going to ask things of you can't do. You might use a calibrated question. Well, how am I supposed to do that? Well, when somebody asks that question, the other person is going to inherently want to help with that. So calibrated questions are a good way to resolve this conflict. The last thing I'll mention here is to prompt them by using no questions. Would it be impossible for us to reschedule this inspector next week? Okay. Well, they think, well, it's not impossible. We could probably do that. Would it be a bad idea, in another situation for us to reduce the sales price by $10,000? You may have to ask your seller in a different setting because the house isn't selling. You don't want to use questions that lead them to yes, because yes, it feels like we're boxing them in. But when you ask questions that are no questions, that allow them to say no if they don't like it, it gives them that safety net so they can do what you ask them to do. So these are just some different ways, some different principles. You use all of them together to really help you resolve conflict. We don't know if this is something that can be useful to you today or later down the road, but if we can answer any questions for you, we'd love for you to give us a call at 903-261-2490. Thank you. We hope you have a fantastic day.